Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's great to see you. As you can see, I am going solo in this moment. I mean, not in the room, but Pastor Brian is in Southern California as we speak with the mission trip with our youth. And they arrived safely yesterday and just starting to kind of get into things. I heard that they had a wonderful night last night out on the beach with a campfire, and I have no doubt doing devotions and doing a little worship around that campfire. And I can imagine for our youth, right? You think about the fact that they live in the desert, and if that's all they know, getting to the Pacific Ocean is really a change in venue and really something different. Because I can remember when I grew up in Western Illinois, many of us, not me, but a lot of my friends and schoolmates had never been to the city of Chicago, even though it was 2.5 hours away. But it was just to get into a new environment, and it is shocking. And I wouldn't say unnerving, but it is so different to be in a new location. And I love that about thinking about any sort of retreat, whether it is with adults or youth, or even Vacation Bible School, is take people out of their element. And you know what happens is that they're willing to open their hearts a little bit more by just changing the scenery. So I heard today that they began the morning, in quotes, in church, because they visited the mission at San Juan Capistrano. And we mentioned that last week, but it is such a beautiful place, and there is a beautiful church or chapel located within that old mission that is just breathtaking for not only its historical value, but the altar itself came from Europe way back in the 1700s, and I can imagine the volume of prayers prayed in that chapel, in that church over the years. Even today, there are people who go there to pray and to worship. And so I think that's a great way to start a mission trip, is beginning it there in a lot of ways, if not symbolically, like before God. So we wish them well, and we hope to get more updates by Thursday. But Thursday will be a fun day because if you could join us for the broadcast, we have a special guest joining us on Thursday, and it is the new CEO of Lutheran Social Services of Nevada. I only briefly met him and shook his hand and said, "You should come and be on a broadcast." And he said, okay. So we have it lined up for this Thursday, and so we will have a special guest. And if you want to hear all about the great things that Lutheran Social Services does in our community and the ways that we help support that, I just say, come on back on Thursday and take a look. And as you know, I mentioned it on Sunday, we're just a week out from the beginning of the Peanut Butter Wars. And so this year they've adjusted the rules where they're going to give out 2 trophies this year. One is for dollars given, money given, but the other is for the most peanut butter collected. And I think that they realized that people tackle this challenge in different ways, because every year we give more peanut butter than anybody, but another church, gives money. So we'll at least maybe be in line to give the most peanut butter this year, and maybe actually get recognized for that. So, but we're getting there, and that's a great project for us. And I hope you're staying cool, because it has gotten really hot the last few days. And believe it or not, nobody has said anything in the studio, but we have air conditioning again in here. And on Friday, yep, there's some applause in the room. On Friday, our AC guy came because we got everything else up and running, and for some reason, this unit in here still wasn't running, although everything else in the church was. And so we had him come, and what he found was the fact that when everything went down, this unit actually blew a fuse. Well, we don't have fuses, but it tripped the circuit breaker for whatever reason. So he spent the morning tracking down where the circuit panel is for this air conditioning unit, which is in our ceiling. Found it, tripped it, flipped it back into place, reset it, and we were back to the races. So we're absolutely very happy to have air conditioning down here again, without the door open, without a fan blowing in, and without us going, oh my gosh, with all this computer and camera equipment. It's like, it's like 10 degrees warmer than anywhere else, downstairs in the building. So we're glad to have that back. So as you know, if you joined us this past weekend, we're going to revisit the KCLC song that we had sung for us or to us. Tony Arias was with us this weekend, and he sang this song, and I preached on it. But the song is so good that, like the previous week with Taking It to the Streets, we wanted to revisit it a little bit. And when I was getting ready for this message, one of the things that struck me, even though I thought I was going to talk about a love song and the importance of love, which, it's nothing you can never talk too much about, it struck me that this song is an expression of gratitude. And I think how important it is for us to say thank you. So today I picked out a video, before we see the song again, I picked out a video for us to watch. And so the words will be on the screen. It's not narrated. So if wherever you're at right now, if you can just direct your attention to the screen so that you can see the words that are going to come up on the screen and reflect on these things. So let's take a look. A reminder to be grateful. And for when I watched this, one of the things that jumped out at me was the acknowledgement that life isn't perfect. And that sometimes we might hold off being grateful, saying thank you, unless every little parameter and every little nuance is perfect and beyond what you expected. With that, well, I'm going to say thank you. But do you say thank you even in things and in times that aren't 100% perfect, but they are okay or they're good? Thank you for my home, even though it is humble. Do I give thanks for the job I have or the income I have, although it isn't overabundant? It's enough. I give thanks for my family, even though we're struggling. I think that's a great question for us to wrestle with, at least internally, is to think about, am I grateful for the non-perfect things? I don't mean the bad things, but the things that aren't 100% perfect, am I still thankful for this thing and that thing or this part of my life, even though there's trouble or there is struggle with it, but it's still good? And I think that is a great example to draw from, to think to yourself, you know what, I need to be more thankful. I don't need to wait until the, fourth Thursday in November or whenever that is, Thanksgiving is, to say, well, today's the day I'm going to be thankful for the entire year. But instead, take that moment to take stock and say, things don't have to be perfect to be thankful. Things don't have to be 100% amazing to have an overwhelming sense of gratitude, to be like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. But to be able to say thank you for the little things, for the small things, for the best effort things, even if it didn't turn out that way. And I think that a life of thankfulness is one of those lives that is pointing to, you can't do it all yourself. That when you realize that other people, circumstances, God has a part in your life, that you didn't do it all yourself, that's when gratitude can surface, and to say, wow, I am who I am because of all of these different things and people have shaped me. And then to name it, to be able to name it, I think is huge. To be able to, I wouldn't say humble in a bad way, but to humble yourself to say, hey, thank you for helping me. Thank you for being there. Thank you for loving me. And that really gets at the heart of the song that we heard on Sunday. As I told you, it came to us from 1996 by Diane Warren, who is a songwriting genius with many awards, the top awards for the fruits of her labor, and produced by David Foster, another hit maker, and sung by Celine Dion. And if you remember, I said that this song was written by Diane Warren, thanking in a lot of ways her father, who supported her throughout her life. And in other words, to do the things that she does, which, as you know, to be, well, maybe you don't know, but to be an artist, to break through, is sometimes really hard. And her father never gave up on her talent and the things that she wanted to get done. So recognizing that gratitude and saying thank you, and even in her own way, doing it through song, I think is the best way through the gifts that we've already been given. So let's revisit this. Tony sings this for us, and I hope you enjoy it as much today as we did on Sunday.
For all the times you stood by me, for all the truth that you made me see, for all the joy you brought into my life, for all the wrongs that you made right, for every dream that made come true, for all the love I found in you, I'll be forever thankful, Jesus. You're the one who held me up, never let me fall. You're the one who saw me through it all. You were my strength when I was weak. You were my voice when I couldn't speak. You were my eyes when I couldn't see. You saw the best there was in me, lifted me up when I couldn't reach. You gave me faith 'cause you believe I'm everything I am because you loved me. You were always there for me, the tender wind that carried me, a light in the dark, shining your love into my life. You speak. You were my eyes when I couldn't see. You saw the best there was in me, lifting me up when I couldn't reach. You gave me faith 'cause you believe. I'm everything I am because you loved me. Oh, you are my strength. You are my voice, my eyes. You saw the best there was in me. You give me hope, because you believe. I'm everything I am because you loved me. I'm everything I am because you loved me.
Moment, an amazing sermon was preached. I didn't want you to miss that part of it either. Yeah, right, very much so. I mean, that's what other people told me, just so you know. I mean, it wasn't my words, so. Yeah, that's the word on the street. But we get to this place where you think about, and I hope that you think about the people that have stood by you in your life. The people that were willing to tell you the truth in things, to help you see things in a new way. People that brought joy to your life. I mean, so not some abstract, although beautiful song from the 90s. I mean, can you take stock of the folks in your life who walked with you, who molded you, helped you up, cared for you, even as an example in love and care and poise? Who are those people in your life who made that difference? And I said on Sunday, I said, sometimes those are people that you encounter once, but they left an impression that you never forgot. You learned a lesson in that moment. You're like, I got to be like that, or more like that, or they said something so profound that I've held on to that thing. Or maybe it's somebody who was in your life for a number of years and then faded away, because that happens. You can be thankful for those momentary relationships, the ones that lasted a season, and of course, the long term, the forever connection. All of those can have an element of gratitude, even today, even if it was something long ago, that one can give thanks to God for that moment, that encounter, that friendship, that walking side by side. And one of the things that I really like in the second verse is, you gave me wings and made me fly. You touched my hand, and then I could touch the sky. That there are people in our life who call us to higher ground or higher living, and that being around them brings out the best in us. And I hope you have encountered people like that, where you're like, I strive to be the best version of myself because they exemplify that in their lives. Or even this, I lost my faith and you gave it back to me. There are people who, through traumatic experiences, question everything. And there are people who come along and help pick up the pieces and help them see life differently post-trauma. And I think, you think about the broken pieces of one's life as a metaphor. And one of the things that comes to mind is, can you think of another medium of art where there are broken things that become something beautiful? Like a mosaic, like stained glass windows. Broken shards of colored glass, once arranged and put together, can form something beautiful. And we touched on this, but Joseph's life was a bunch of broken pieces. And yet God gave him a new perspective so that he could, it became a stained glass window, something beautiful, and it reflected his faith. And there are people who pick up those broken pieces in our life and help us move forward. And I think that is also one of those things we can be thankful for. Now, when I was looking through, and of course the Bible is just packed with this notion of being grateful, being thankful, having gratitude for any number of things. But I want to pick up in a place that we hear it often, but maybe we miss it. And this is from the Last Supper. So Jesus' final hours before he's arrested, tried, convicted, killed, all before Easter. But in that Last Supper, and you know this because we do this at church, it says, while they were eating, Jesus took bread and gave thanks for it. And then he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, take and eat, this is my body. So in the moment of Holy Communion, where Jesus is making a connection between his upcoming death at that moment and that piece of bread being him, what does he do? He gives thanks for the bread. And it may seem like a footnote in the Bible, but even in that moment, Jesus is thankful for that loaf of bread, for that piece of bread, that pita bread, or whatever it was, probably unleavened bread, but he was thankful for it, even though what he was about to do was really the give himself, where we would be saying, thank you. Thank you for dying. Thank you for rising again. Thank you for forgiving our sins. Thank you for opening a way to heaven. Like to me, you think about that stuff and you go, well, that's where the gratitude should be. It should be from us to God because he's doing all this stuff for us. Yet in this simple, humble moment, Jesus is giving thanks for that bread. And he's being extremely, he is being humble about it. Thank you for this bread. And yet he's the one who gives himself for us. And then likewise, he says, then after that, he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, drink of it, all of you. This cup is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. So once again, Jesus twice within the communion meal gives thanks to God. Which, by the way, if you didn't know, there are several names for Holy Communion. We call it the Lord's Supper. We call it Holy Communion. But also, it is not referred to as much as it used to be, but the word Eucharist was used to describe, or if you're going to have communion, you say, oh, we're going to celebrate the Eucharist, which is the Greek term for Thanksgiving, that we're gathering for a Thanksgiving meal around bread and wine, around the presence of Jesus for all that he's given to us. So even in Holy Communion, there's a moment when we hear the story that twice, in literally a paragraph of words, Jesus is giving thanks. And what a model for us to give thanks for simple things. And those two things were about the most common things on any dinner table on any given day in Israel. Bread and wine. It doesn't get any more simple than that. And yet Jesus takes the time to thank his Father in heaven for those two simple things. Maybe I need to be more thankful for the simple things in my life. Now, in Colossians, which the author is unknown, some say Paul, some say others, in the 3rd chapter, he talks about being thankful. So listen to this. Let the peace of Christ, so in other words, have peace in your heart at all times, the peace of Christ rule in your heart, since as members of one body, that is, since you're a part of the church, you were called to peace. Oh, makes sense, right? If not the command, but this person's wish is like, I hope the peace of Christ is within you because we're part of a larger body, a church family, And the only way that we're going to get along and be together is if we all have peace in our hearts, to be peaceable to one another. So I love that. It reminds us to be peaceful. And then he just says this, 3 words, and be thankful, right? It's just like, have peace, be thankful. And now here's a little bit more teaching with that. He says, let the word of Christ, as in like the gospel stories, dwell in you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, as you sing psalms, hymns, spiritual songs with gratitude in your hearts to God. So he says, you guys, church, hey, church family, like just be great, just be thankful. And then at the end, he's like, and as you're worshiping God, and whether it's prayers or whether it is songs, hymns, or what does it say? Psalms, hymns, or spiritual songs. And the church is early at this point, but it's clear they have a repertoire of worship music already within the first century of Jesus ascending into heaven. Like, yeah, we're already getting the worship thing down. And he's like, and as you do that, he's like, have gratitude. Have thanks for all that God has done in your life. I like it. And what a great reminder to be full of peace and to be thankful, to worship God, and as you do it, be grateful for all the things that God has done. And I said on Sunday, and it bears repeating, that if you aren't thankful for what God has done in your past to lead you to this moment, there's a good chance you will not trust him with the rest of your life, because you don't see God having a hand in your past. So why would you think that God would have a hand in your future? So if you can be thankful for what's in the past, there's a good chance you're already trusting him to reveal and open what your next steps, your next days, your next months, your next years will be. And to know that you're in good hands. And that when life goes sideways, you also know someone's going to be there. And to trust that. That will give you the peace that surpasses understanding. It's like, man, life may go sideways, but I'll tell you what, I know someone who's going to be there to walk with me through these things. And at least that gives me a lot of comfort when there is uncertainty, when life isn't what I expect. You be like, but you know what? God's there. And God's going to give me the next steps. And Philip said earlier today, we were talking, he's like, that when you trust it, also God will give you the words too. So words of wisdom, that when we trust in that, there's a gratitude, because you just know God's got your back. And to have that allows one to breathe easier. Now, last thing I want to share with you today, I used this verse. It's actually 3 verses, but it is so short you would think it's 1 verse. I used this as a theme verse one year at a church that I served in Illinois, because it was short, it was to the point. I'm guessing you've heard it before, but 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 16, and remember, 1 Thessalonians is the oldest letter of Paul, if not the oldest document that we have in the New Testament. Even before the Gospels were written down, 1 Thessalonians was really the oldest thing that we have in terms of chronology. So Paul's first writings that we have copies of. And so 3 verses, chapter 5, 16 to 18, be joyful always, that's 1 verse. Pray continually, that's the 2nd verse. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. Man, talk about not only a challenge, but good advice. Be joyful, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances. It's a challenge, but I like the fact that we are reminded that joy is an internal state of being and has nothing to do with external circumstance. So when we tap into that joy from God, the joy of the Lord is our strength, we can do that. Pray continually. In other words, keep checking in with God throughout the day. And then you'd be like, give thanks to God in all circumstances. If for nothing else, it's like, but God, I know you're here, and for that I can give thanks. And then he just clearly is like, that's God's will for you. So I'm going to try to continue to be thankful for all the things that God has done in my life and will do in my life. And I hope that you can say thank you to those around you who have been your rock and those who have taught and led and cared for you. And if they're no longer with us, give thanks to God. And I'm guessing he'll pass on that message to that loved one. So anyways, God bless you. I'm glad you could join me today for a little bit. Remember, tomorrow or on Thursday, we'll have a special guest with us and get to learn about Lutheran Social Services. So with that, I'm going to bid you adieu, and I'm going to turn this over to Philip Fortenberry. Will you play us out?